I'm the unknown face here. My name is Joe Orlando, and I work here at Seattle University, and I want to extend the welcome. I know you've heard from a number of folks here from SU, including Paul Fontana, who is our faculty advisor here for Alpha Sigma Nu, and Father Steve, and Provost Shane Martin, but I want to extend my welcome as well. I work in the Center for Jesuit Education here, and I'm also involved in global engagement, and I had the privilege of working on the steering committee for this assembly of the International Association of Jesuit Universities, the founding assembly. And I was there with Kate, your leader, and what a beautiful presentation she made. So we're grateful to be able to share our experience this morning with you.
So this is the group, and as you can see, one of the unforgettable, you can see I'm still shaking my head that I actually got to do this, but as you can see the sign above us says the St. Ignatius Basilica, so we're actually at Loyola. So why were we all there? Well, this past July, as we've mentioned, at the University of Deusto, the Deusto Assembly gathered the presidents from all the international Jesuit universities. And so here we are. And there were also other guests and speakers. And so, Joe. Yeah. Okay, so why did this happen? Well, every 3 to 5 years, the leaders of international Jesuit higher education gather. And so Father Michael Garanzini convened this group. He's the Secretary for Higher Ed for the entire order. And lucky for all of us, he will join us this evening. So who attends? This year, this meeting, it was over 300 presidents, and sometimes are called rectors, provosts, mission officers, speakers, and the Father General. So what's this for? You might be wondering, what gathers us all? So we're going to explore the most urgent and current priorities. As you can imagine, the world changes, so do the priorities for Jesuit higher education. And the other goal was to create a network to address the challenges in spirit as directed by the General Congregation 36. So I think it's good for us all to remember that you all are part of this global university network. I'm always heartened and yet kind of surprised when you all get together and go, yeah, we're part of the 28. Friends, we are part of this. So, in 54 countries, 210 universities, 800,000 current students, 450,000 faculty and staff, 5 million alumni. We're big. There's power. We have power for good in this organization. Okay, so in previous, you might wonder, was Deusto first? No. In Mexico City in 2010, Father Sosa called the meeting, Father Nicolas called the meeting, and you can see here what the priorities at that meeting were. Particularly, he focused on what's happening in the globalizing world, focused poverty, sustainability, human rights, globalization. You'll see these are common themes, but as a network, the Jesuit higher ed folks are constantly seeking to reinvent ways that they address those issues. So then again in Melbourne in 2015, and those of you who were at the Triennial last time saw the video from this conference, again, emphasizing the orientation toward justice in Jesuit universities, how important it is, how important you all are, student formation, in reference to that orientation toward justice, how university research should be focused on justice, and you can read the rest. So, and the keynote was, actually, I've got the wrong thing, I'm sorry. The keynote was Father Nicolas. So, okay.
And I'll just add to this slide, I'm going to take the next slide, but in fact, these two gatherings were meetings. There was no association that really existed yet. So these were, in a sense, international gatherings. There were representatives from those higher ed institutions, but there was something really different that happened this past July in this assembly that we're talking about, because there was the founding of an association. And that really changed from meetings, from gatherings where people could come together. It would be sort of like here, you'd come together saying, well, what's going on at your Alpha Sigma Nu organizing opportunity at Marquette or at Regis or at SU, but there was nothing that linked you. So this was the moment where we did become linked. So this is a picture at the Universidad de Deusto, which was it's a Jesuit university in Bilbao, and the three Jesuits in the front there, Father Mike Gaertner on the left is the Secretary for Higher Education, the former president of Loyola Chicago. In the middle is the president of Deusto, and then the former president of Deusto, and now a leader in the Jesuits in Europe. Then you see Susana Di Trollio. She was on the coordinating committee from Aushal, from Venezuela. Myself, as a representative from the United States. Alvaro is the next person over. He was the host at Deusto. Borja and Ignacio's here in the room from Loyola Andalusia, played a really important role on the coordinating committee. And then also, you see Father Joseph Christie here from India, and Francois Cabor from Ivory Coast. So there is significant representation from around the world. 5 of the 6 association locations are represented. We didn't have someone from Asia Pacific in this grouping. There's significant representation of Jesuits and lay. We need to do better on representing more women in this kind of gathering, and that's already been something that we talk about going forward. And on the task force groups, there were more women involved as well. So the way the conference was organized, it was a founding assembly in its conceptually. So we wanted to have some opportunity to have some engagement with tasks, with topics that would make a difference for Jesuit universities around the world and relate to priorities and commitments in the Society of Jesus. So one of the ways to do that was to have small working groups that had representation from around the world take a look at key topics. So these 6 topics were identified as having priority, and you'll notice that they're not just a disciplinary focus, they have meaning and relevance to the needs of our world right now that cut across borders, that is woven in. So for example, when you see, and I'll come back to leadership formation in the university, but civic and political leadership, many countries around the world are wrestling with questions around leadership, moral leadership, ethical leadership, and preparation for effective leadership. Environmental and economic justice, we know, such a critical issue. Education for the marginalized and the poor is a critical topic for each of our universities. Access for education to become the leveraging agent it can be. Interreligious dialogue is crucial in our world today, and peace and reconciliation. So at many Jesuit universities around the world, these topics have resonance and relevance. And the leadership formation in the university was the one, what I would call internal topic. How do we prepare ourselves to share leadership with laymen and women, where there's been a lot of historical leadership from Jesuits? How do we prepare laymen and women to assume greater Ignatian leadership? So task forces were created by Father Mike, and they met in Rome in January, created and drafted some written working papers, and then all the folks who came to the assembly read those papers, and we engaged in conversation. So this was part of the way that we could begin to get the work of the assembly going forward together.
And another thing I wanted to point out, sorry, I got my but thanks, Joe. The other thing I wanted to point out is I went to the leadership, both civic and political, and formation in the university. And I did it because you all are who I thought of. If you all aren't our future leaders who get mission, whether you join office or whether you run for office, whether you join a university as a staff or faculty, in whatever world you find yourselves, this is you, in my world. So.
I want to mention too, there's a website that's been created and it was launched concurrent with the founding of the assembly, and Ignacio was key in helping get that going along with some other colleagues. So it's available to all of you, IAJU. If you just Googled IAJU, you'd be able to go to the website, and all of these papers are on that website, as well as an interactive map that is totally inspiring because you can see all the Jesuit higher education institutions around the world. So you can go to your institution and see it, but then you can also go to Chile. You could go to the Philippines, South Korea, Japan. You name there's 54 countries where you'll see that Jesuit higher education is there. And one of the things that I found most inspiring about the whole process here, and I think each one of you would find this as well, I traveled all the way to Rome for a meeting with people who were from all over the world. And I sat down and I felt like I was with my sisters and brothers and friends and colleagues in Jesuit higher education. And I think every student in this room would have that same experience, every colleague. It was very powerful. I felt like, wow, I'm in a family, an Ignatian family, and we have something to offer to the world. That's part of what this assembly and this association means. There was a wonderful day that was sort of the centerpiece in a way. On July 11th, 2018, the picture at the front of the slideshow you saw, we were in the front of the Basilica. Well, it's an hour away from Bilbao to get to Loyola Ignatius's hometown, and where this basilica has been built. But we spent the day with Father General Arturo Sosa. He's from Venezuela. He has a history in higher education there. And he was very strong in calling us into this association to express his endorsement and support. He gave an address in the morning in the Basilica. And then the 6 regional associations met separately. And he would come in and talk with each of us about what are the concerns in Latin America, what are the concerns and the needs in North America, in Europe, Africa, South Asia, especially India, and Asia Pacific. So those were the 6 regions. So he spent the day with us. It was very powerful. And he closed with the homily, by the way, in which he said, essentially, it may seem hard to imagine how we're going to make this work. It's been a long time Jesuit universities have been kind of operating on their own. But he said, if we really put our trust in God, we can do great things together. So this meeting, and this is a good example of the spirit that he brought to those meetings. This is with Alvaro, he's having a conversation. But he really reaffirmed the mission of Jesuit higher education. And I had a couple of themes I wanted to mention that came out of his talk that I think are powerful. One was reconciliation, certainly a theme that came out of General Congregation 36. He also talked about the reality of our world and that we have to understand our universities as this social project, this proyecto social. We have a contribution to make to society. We want to prepare our students to be leaders in repairing the social fabric. We want to pursue intellectual depth with meaning. We want to cultivate in our students world citizenship. And near the end of his talk, he gave this quote, "This world meeting of Jesuit universities held here in Loyola and in Bilbao is seeking to make history. With our presence here, we confirm that we are willing to come together to produce better and greater outcomes."
And Joe, what would you say, it's interesting, in the meetings with Father Sosa, he met with the different conferences. So Joe and I were at the conference for the Association of Jesuit Colleges and Universities, where Deanna works, so obviously the U.S. group. So I'll be honest, I was a listener because I do not serve as either a faculty or administrative person in a university. But for you, what were a few key moments in that discussion?
I remember one president had the courage to stand up and say, we're wrestling with how we can be most inclusive of our LGBTQ students, and that sometimes that feels in tension with the way the institutional church is perceived and the message that we hear. We want to share that reality with you and let you know that that's one of the things that we wrestle with in the United States. And what was interesting about that moment for me is I almost felt like the U.S. experience was being heard, in a really genuine mutual way by Father General. So it's not like he had a response to that. There wasn't a corrective answer or anything, but I think he was being educated. So that certainly is one thing that comes to my mind.
And I was going to say the exact same one. And the president of the university started it. He broke the tension a little bit because he said, "I'm sure our university is the one you get the most letters about." But the Father General turned and looked and said, essentially, "Are they your students? Cura personalis." And it was a very short answer. Yeah.
Yes, so it was actually quite a beautiful moment, and I wished I could have kind of accompanied Father General to each of these conversations, because I wonder, well, what were they talking about in the Africa group? What were they talking about in India? What were they talking about in Asia Pacific and in Europe? It really was, but he spent this entire day, and a lot of it was listening. He gave his talk, and then he said, basically, "What's going on? Tell me about what's going on for you." So it meant a lot.
Mm-hmm. So before I launch into this, one of the things I was just thinking about is, for example, you Seattle U Alpha Sigma Nu officers, if you're looking for a program, ask Joe to help you have a conversation about the task force topics or a task force topic. It'd be a great way to go back, for all of us, to go back to our institutions and say to our faculty advisors or mission folks, yeah, we'd like to talk about it. Okay, we have two of these maybe.
Let's use the other one.
Okay. Good? Yeah. So you might be wondering, "Hey, Gaertner, what were you doing there?" Well, this is what I was doing there. We are very unique. We have a network of 92,000 members. We cross 32 institutions now, not just the 28 in the States, now Sogang, Loyola Andalusia, Regis, and Campion. There's no other database like ours. We have the ability to email, to communicate, to mail, so we really are unique. And Father Garanzini approached me because he feels that our organization is a model of the type of association that can contribute to the success of the IAJU and can gather collaborators with the Jesuits on mission. So there I am. I could not believe I was in that beautiful room in Spain. Holy smoke.
It was a beautiful room. And it was filled with a lot of beautiful people. So on July 11th, and this is a part of what distinguished this from those earlier meetings, there was a formal signing ceremony in the Basilica after Father General had given his talk, up on the altar, where a representative from each of the 6 regions came up and signed the official charter and strategic plan of the International Association of Jesuit Universities. So Francoise from Africa, I don't know all the names, but I'll mention the region. Asia Pacific, India, or South Asia. Then you see Father General and Mike Garanzini. I believe this is for the Aushall president from Latin America, Father Mike Sheeran from AJCU, and this fellow is from Europe. I'm sure Ignacio would know his name. But these 6 regions, this is an association of associations. So we have an association in the United States, the AJCU. And the concept is that the IAJU becomes an association that tries to strengthen and link these other associations. It doesn't take them over, it doesn't replace them. It strengthens and links them. And in fact, the signing of the charter, it wasn't locked in stone. It's going to be discussed and developed and sort of expanded to respond to the needs. There already have been a lot of suggestions about how to improve what is this for and how can it be helpful to make this network effective around the world. So the organizational structure is that in each of these 6 regions, so Father Mike will remain the chair of the board of the International Association of Jesuit Universities. Each association elected 2 representatives to the board. In many cases, one of these was one of those 2. In our case, we elected also from the United States, Linda Lemura is the president of Lemoyne College. So she's the 2nd representative. So there are 12 members of the board. Father Mike is the chair. They're going to meet once a year and virtually twice a year. And they're going to basically shape this going forward. These goals and objectives are designed for the next 3 years. The concept is that every 3 years there will be an assembly to say, where do we need to go next? So you can see creating a vibrant network is the first goal, and we're launching it here, but we have a lot of work to do to make this effective so that we can be collaborative in an effective way. We want to keep the spirit of Jesuit higher education and the values of the Society of Jesus alive and in focus. So what are the calls from the general congregations 35 and 36 around reconciliation, around faith and justice, around discernment, that we need to make sure that we're addressing? How can we serve the church with Catholic social thought? It's all often been called, our greatest secret, our best kept secret. But what is it we need to be teaching about and animating and in service through research, teaching, and advocacy around Catholic social thought? And finally, how can we help make it possible so that scholars are collaborating across global boundaries in service to our students, So.
I think a really good question is what role can Alpha Sigma Nu play? And it kind of gets back to the question that I said, why was I invited? Which is because of our network. We are across continents and universities. And I know sometimes you may not feel like, well, I just go to Canisius or I just go to Santa Clara. And actually, again, I think that Joe and I can agree that we're all going to work harder at reminding you all that you're part of this larger global network and can be active in that. It's not just, okay, yeah, we might email you. You can truly be active in it. This was a wonderful opportunity for us to promote the way we communicate. We constantly promote Jesuit projects, province programs. As students, you probably aren't getting all those emails, but if there's ever any kind of program, whether it's, I'm trying to think all the places we push out for, Ignatian Solidarity Network, all the provinces, we use our emails to communicate about Jesuit programs. So we're kind of a model for doing that for IAGU. And we do consistently try to keep the calls of GC 35 and 36, and one of them is to improve our networking across all our universe, really. So when I was talking to the group at Deusto, here's what I suggested. If any university new to us would like to charter a chapter, we would absolutely welcome that. We may find that later on, for example, 2 weeks ago, I was contacted by the, I know I'm going to hammer this, sorry, Universidad Pacifica, I forget which, Ignacio. Yeah, and it's in Lima. And they're interested in starting a chapter. How exciting is that? Now, it may be that later on, OSHAL, which is the University Association in Central and South America, may want to start their own Alpha Sigma Nu-like organization, because culturally, we may not match. So what we would do in that case is to help them do that, and then Lima could join or be the leader in that group. So we're sort of open to either welcoming new chapters or helping regions start their own Alpha Sigma Nu-esque organization. It was I really do thank Ignacio and Father Young-Hae Kim for reminding us and giving me particularly a reminder about how Western US-centric Alpha Sigma Nu can be, and without intentionally being so, that our language, our customs, the way we discuss our values, even though they're universal, we just have to be a little more aware, and it's a good lesson. So in any case, we will see that this may develop over time, and probably not quickly, but it will be interesting to see who's next, and what that looks like. Oh, fun. So this was, yeah. So again, this is a video we used that, thanks to Mar Castillo Castro from Loyola Andalusia and Ignacio, this was used to kind of reiterate our international touch and we would be welcome
Society.
to help others.
And as a hallmark of Jesuit higher education, seems nearly
It's a great way for us to recognize the students who are excited, involved, engaged, and who are displaying excellence in their academic work, and to make them even more engaged in our college community.
the potential for Alpha Sigma Nu to serve as a global honor society and as a hallmark of Jesuit higher education seems nearly boundless.
A global honor society could be a good instrument to meet each other, to join forces, to share activities, to do things together. For this reason, I think that a global honor society like Alpha Sigma Nu is a great idea for the Society of Jesus.
Thanks to the collaboration between Jesuit universities, I had the opportunity to study in Marquette University and Sogan University. This made me experience Alpha Sigma Nu in 3 very different environments. Although the environment is very different, I found on Alpha Sigma Nu people that share the same values. I found people that are prepared and committed to change the social realities that can be found in any of our countries.
It has been a very challenging approach in terms that at the beginning for us, the brand, some of the image of Alpha Sigma Nu, it was a little different from what we have here in Europe, where honor societies are not that popular. But actually, when you go deep into Alpha Sigma Nu, you realize that the values that this honor network promotes, they are totally aligned with the values of our university.
They have passion to be loyal to our alma mater. They eager to serve the people. So such a morally and spiritual good educated person we need for the promotion of justice and faith. They are a partner of our mission and identity.
Not all of our Alpha Sigma Nu recipients are Catholic. And so it's been a wonderful way of including everybody around those values of loyalty, scholarship, and service. Our students in Alpha Sigma Nu are living out those Jesuit values. They're learning how to be bridge builders in a very pluralist society that we have here in Saskatchewan.
They are Fulbright scholars serving in sub-Saharan Africa and Central America. They bring human wisdom and godly tenderness to those we serve.
Ha colaborado magníficamente bien, de manera incondicional con el servicio de evangelización ideal, fomentando en primer lugar la participación de todos los estudiantes, que se sintieran protagonistas. Han contribuido mucho en iniciativas de tipo social y de tipo voluntario para poner al servicio de los demás todo lo que reciben.
And I think if they have a mindful experience, so-called heartbroken experience during the study at Sogan, then they remember this experience so that they can commit for our goals.
They wanted to give back to the community, but they weren't sure how to do that. So they were led in a nation discernment exercise, and they discerned that they were going to help street youth, young people on the streets.
Personas disponibles, personas abiertas, personas dialogantes, y yo diría sobre todo con ganas de cambiar el mundo.
This invites me to dream about other college students having similar experience in other Jesuit universities.
One of the interesting things that came out of the last year and a half, and I'll just mention it quickly, some of you might have noticed something different these days about our key. Anybody see what we've done? Key. So the key historically has had the eye of wisdom. And what we learned about the eye of wisdom is it means something different outside the U.S. than in England. So we went through the process of asking for permission to change it to the Jesuit sun. So from now on, our key and our medallion will have the Jesuit sun. And again, it's in response to some cultural sensitivity around symbols that we're accustomed to using
So Kate, the title for this slide is Joe, Why the Global Network Matters and How It Will Contribute to the Jesuit Mission. So I said, wow, that's kind of a big question. But I thought about something that I love to have the opportunity to share. It's easy to forget that the Society of Jesus was started by students. It was started by students. They were students at the University of Paris. So they were just like you. And they were students who wanted to make the world a better place. And they were students who had a spiritual experience of meaning and depth together. But the other thing that was really interesting, relevant to what we're talking about today, is that in the founding group of 7 that took these vows at Montmartre in Paris, they were all at the University of Paris, it was already a global group. Ignatius was from the Basque area. There were others, a few others from other parts of Spain under different leadership, also from France though, and also from Portugal. So being global is who we are. We were started as a global group. And as we all know, in the Society of Jesus, Jesuits were sent around the world right from the beginning. And there were founding of Jesuit universities around the world, again, from the very beginning. And even after the suppression, a 40-year period where many of those institutions closed, the power of this spirituality couldn't be stopped. And when it was reconstituted, so many of our institutions were founded, especially in the United States, after the suppression. So it's who we are, being global, in our roots, but it's also what the world needs. And I don't know about you, we're all members of the United Nations, right, through our national commitment. But that seems kind of distant. And there are maybe other things that we feel like we're a part of globally. And yet, my experience of this is that we're all members of this Ignatian family, this global Ignatian family. And it's a lot closer to us than any other global association that we're a part of. So if you could sit down with students from Chile or South Korea or Japan or all these other countries around the world, you'd find so much in common. If you could sit down with a faculty member or a staff member from those locations, you'd feel the same kind of unity. So this is a power of connection and shared mission, but it's also, we all know what our world really needs. We need bridge building. We need repairing of the social fabric. We need reconciliation. We need to understand one another more across boundaries. And we need to face some of these global challenges that we all face together, to find a way to do that together. So in that sense, the founding of the International Association of Jesuit Universities is a real sign of hope. And you're part of that sign of hope. You're in this. You're in this with all of us. So that's what I would say about why it matters. And Alpha Sigma Nu, as an association, has a powerful contribution to make to this new International Association of Jesuit Universities.
Great. Before we have about 10 minutes of table discussion, I'd love to, we would both entertain any questions you might have about the meeting, or the themes, or what they think will happen.
Yes. Not so much specifically about the meeting. At the beginning, you were mentioning one of the kind of goals was to explore the most urgent priorities for Jesuit education. Kind of going off that similar thread, what do you see as the biggest difficulties or barriers to Jesuit education? And kind of expanding that.
Well, I feel a little under qualified to answer that, but I think the decline in numbers of Jesuits is a real challenge, and I think again that we have to look around the room and ask ourselves what are we going to do about that, and how can we contribute. I think that for me is a message I heard, and the other thing, Mary McFarland's here today, as you know, right? The challenge to reach out through the global network is another big challenge for Jesuit higher ed. And as Father Sosa emphasized, the spirit of generosity amongst our institutions might help address that.
to that particular university in Managua because of the political crisis created by the current government. So what's the greatest threat right now is a very current and political threat to that Jesuit university. Whereas I could say that, like in India, there's a Jesuit university in Bangalore, and they want to make sure that they continue to be the kind of place that provides hospitality to some of the populations that are being marginalized in their context, people from the northeast part of the country who have been under threat in the main part of India. So they're the university there is trying to make space and access to them. So in the United States, I think we might answer it differently, even differently regionally. So that's part of the reason there's an intriguing question is that it depends on where we're situated and what we're facing. That the greater threat might have a different contour to it.
Thank you.
Okay. Other comments or questions about the experience? Yes.
Obviously, one of the major problems in the United States is money. It's very hard to remember the Jesuit institutions, when originally founded, were all free. They charged no tuition.
Yes.
You have to figure out some way to get back to that.
Father Haig is about to get a standing ovation.
But I actually would say that money would be one of the things that in the United States we would say that's one of the greatest challenges that we face. How do we make this accessible, this kind of education accessible to students so that they really can receive this value-based education?
Right, and it may not feel like it to you, but that is a constant conversation.
Yeah.
That I would, at all levels.
If anyone comes up with that solution, can you email me? I saw a hand over here.
Yeah, I think like to me it seems that Jesuit University extension going back how expensive it is to go to Jesuit University is that it seems like that this education that I've such an amazing formation process personally and like so grateful for that is one education that is in the US being tailored to other privileged population. So like middle class and above students that can afford to make that choice to go away from home or like pay for private education. But I struggle with that tension because then we have a lower student population that are more marginalized identities. And I think when we're trying to teach our students to like work at the margins and care about like making a change in the world, but we don't have very many students that are actually with those identities in our school population, like how do you do that without coming off as like a white savior complex?
Well, that's a great question and so well articulated. And so first of all, we have to do things in partnership with the people that are partners in the challenge, whatever the challenges we're facing. We can't just sit in our own and come up with a solution and deliver it. But the other thing that I get excited about is that over time, creativity does emerge. So for example, if you go back 40 years, there was nothing called a Cristo Rey High School. There were private Jesuit high schools, but there was nothing called a Cristo Rey High School. And then someone came up with the idea saying, isn't there another way we could make high school infused with Jesuit values accessible and affordable? And they came up with the Cristo Rey model. And in fact, it's sprouting up all over the country. So it hasn't supplanted Jesuit high schools, which still serve a huge role, contribution, but it's another model. Same with the nativity school model. If you go back 40 years, there were no nativity schools. If you wanted a Jesuit middle school education, it was a private middle school experience, associated with our parishes. We have one here in Seattle. It's a K-8 school. But then the nativity school model was started. So you can see that, and again, accessibility was a key thing. At Loyola Chicago, Father Mike Garanzini started the Arupe Community College sort of model as an experiment of creating access so that folks would come in to that two-year community college model and then be able to move into the Loyola College, Loyola University BA to finish their studies. So I actually think that we have to embrace that spirit of creativity. I don't know the easy solution, but I think those are examples of how we can explore and consider it. It's a great question. Yes?
I appreciated hearing from you about what what was discussed in the breakout sessions with Father Sosa, and you said that you would have liked to have been a fly on the wall and been with him at all the other sessions. Is there any place in which we might be able to access some highlights of those other discussions, or was that something that was really private to the group?
Ignacio could answer that.
Okay.
I mean, it might be good. Why don't you take the mic, Ignacio?
Oh, yeah, he's not walking around.
I mean, it might be good if we could quickly go to the website and see where we can have access to those task forces reports, or even some of these newsletters that were launched every single day, doing as a summary of the assembly.
Oh, yeah.
Just go right up to the top. Where can I don't have to open up Chrome. Just go right back to Chrome. Okay. Just search now. Yeah. Okay. So, actually, thanks for bringing this up. So, this site was created. This, talks about IAJU, the charter, the board members, and I mentioned on the 12. That's what that is. These official documents, if you went there, you could actually read Father Sosa's talk. And these are past talks that are relevant. But then these are all the working groups where you can read the talk, let's say, of civic and political responsibility, the people who worked on it, and then you could download and click on the PDF. This actually gives a snapshot of the members from the different regions, Africa, Asia, Europe, Latin America, North America, and South Asia. This is something that we hope to see being cultivated, scholarly articles that get posted. And these are records of the assemblies. So I think part of what I also wanted to make sure to show was you view the interactive map. So if you ever wanted to just go and be inspired a little bit, say, what university is the young woman from over here? What is that? I thought I saw that on your cap. My daughters are Zaga students. They just started. So let's see. Let's see what we can do up here.
Sure. Well, University is spelled wrong. That's part of it. Will it take me there? Oh, it's right here, of course. Anyways, it's going to take us. So that's how you would find your different schools. And so it's going to keep taking us right down to, where's the best coffee shop, right? So the amazing thing is that, so then you just reset your, there's a guide to reset the map. But what you can do is you can go around the world and say, well, what's going on in India? What is there? And then you can visit India. Isn't that cool? Or let's reset the map here. Let's say, well, what's going on in Africa? I hear there's something in Harare, Zimbabwe. Oh, yeah, there it is. Arupe Jesuit University. Yeah, here it is. Or what's going on in, that Ignacio, he was from up here somewhere in Spain. What's the story up there? If you get into Spain, well, France. I'm getting lost. No, hey! See? That's Granada. Where are we? Here we go. Oh my, yeah, that's right. Right here? No, here. There it is. Come take a trip with me, right? We'll wander on the way. We will. But so this is a powerful tool, and it's just 3 months old. So I mean, we're talking about something that we know can become very powerful, and Ignacio is on the team that's helping develop it. You might want to say a few things more about it too.
Well, thank you.
I mean, I just wanted to say that, as Joe was saying, this is a new tool, and we want it to be a tool for everybody, not only like for the institutions or for the faculty or for the staff. We want it to be for everybody. So we are really looking forward to have feedback from you. This is like really new. Now we have a 2-week, very intensive time to really rethink about it and ask for feedback from you. So if you go to contact, to the contact part, and if you have any feedback, any things that, or any tools that you might think the website should have to embrace more the students, not only you, Alpha Sigma Nu, but also students, Jesuit educated students from Jesuit universities. So please, I really encourage you. You will make like the whole team and the whole IAJU much richer with your comments and suggestions. So I mean, please do it. Have a look at the whole website. Have a look at the report. Very interesting, because the reports of the task forces explain the situation right now of the Society of Jesus, or at least the universities in these different areas, the different 6 lines that they have been talking about, and also what are we doing right now and what should we be doing. So again, if you have ideas, I totally encourage you to contact us through the platform. And well, yes, I mean, we are a family. This is for all of us. This is for to make the world a better place, to get all of us together, this sense of belonging. We are Jesuit educated, and I mean, for Ad Majorem Dei Gloria. So
Hire him. I'd sign that guy up. That's why he's on that steering committee. So it just occurs to me, a lot of those phrases that we share a lot, being a man and woman for others, Ad Majorem Dei Gloriam, there's not a border and a national identity that's infused in that. Be a man or woman for others, only in the United States. Be a man or woman for others, or Ad Majorem Dei Gloriam, only in the United States. I mean, it's actually a global family invitation, global values. That's what you've all committed to and are a part of, and I'm a part of. And I got inspired. I have to say, I've been in Jesuit higher education for 30 years. This is one of the most inspiring things that I've been a part of, not because I haven't been a part of inspiring things locally, but because I've been hearing for years about Jesuits going to international meetings in Rome, and then a document gets written in this amazing global gathering called a General Congregation, and then it gets distributed around the world. And this experience made me realize that's us. That's us. We are that global family. And we have people that are just like us and inspired with what we're inspired by all over this world. And what does it mean that we can share those values and be stronger, when we're unified? So, were there any other comments or questions before we got to a little bit of a table discussion?